You step outside. A bird lands on the fence in front of you. For 1 second, it looks at you. Then it's gone. You didn't move. You didn't make a sound. You were just there. And that was enough. Most people assume animals are scared of humans because we're bigger or louder or because we've hunted them. But the real answer is far stranger. Because some of the animals most terrified of you have never been hunted in their lives. Some of them have never even seen a human before you. And they still run. That fear is not learned. It is ancient. It is written into their biology. And it raises a question that scientists have only recently started to seriously answer. What exactly are we from the animal's perspective? Start with what researchers call the landscape of fear. It is a term coined by ecologist Joel Brown in the 1990s, and it describes something remarkable. Animals do not just fear specific predators, they fear entire landscapes. They learn which environments feel safe and which feel dangerous, and they carry that mental map everywhere. A deer in a forest isn't just afraid of the wolf it can see, it's afraid of the dense thicket where a wolf could hide. It's afraid of the clearing where it has no cover. The fear isn't just a reaction, it's a constant, invisible geography that every wild animal navigates every single day. And in that geography, you're not just a predator, you're the predator that rewrote the entire map. A study published in 2019 in the journal Current Biology examined how animals responded to the recorded sounds of lions, leopards, dogs, and humans. Researchers played these sounds in South Africa's Greater Kruger region and watched what happened. Lions are the apex predator of that ecosystem. They are what every animal there has evolved to fear above all else. Every instinct, every escape reflex, every hair trigger alarm system in those animals' bodies was shaped by millions of years of living alongside lions. Humans were twice as scary, not slightly more terrifying. Twice. Animals fled faster, ran farther, and took significantly longer to return when they heard a human voice than when they heard a lion roar. The study's lead author, Liana Zenn of Western University, described humans as a kind of super predator, something that registers in the animal brain as beyond the normal scale of threat, beyond the lion, beyond the leopard, beyond anything the ecosystem has a category for. Think about what that means. Evolution takes millions of years, and animals' fear responses are not guesses. They are precise biological records of what has actually killed its ancestors. For humans to occupy the top of that fear hierarchy, we have been doing something to these animals and to their predecessors for a very, very long time, and we have. Archaeological evidence suggests early humans were hunting large animals at least 300,000 years ago. Fossil sites in Germany, Morocco, and South Africa show butchered megafauna with unmistakable stone tool marks. These were not accidents. Our ancestors were not just opportunistic scavengers picking at another predator's kill. They were coordinated, persistent, endurance hunters who could track prey across days and terrain that no other predator could match. We didn't have fangs. We didn't have claws. We were slower than almost everything we hunted, but we had something that made those physical disadvantages irrelevant. We could plan ahead. We could communicate. We could spread out and flank, and we never tired. The animals that survived were the ones that ran earliest and farthest. The ones that didn't survive. That pressure shaped every prey species on Earth that shared space with early humans. The megafauna collapse tells the story most clearly. Woolly mammoths, giant ground sloths, cave lions, short-faced bears, diprotodons the size of hippos, glyptodonts armored like tanks. Across every continent where humans arrived, the Americas, Australia, Madagascar, the Pacific Islands, the same pattern repeats. Humans show up, the large animals disappear, not over millions of years of climate change or slow ecological drift, but within thousands of years, sometimes within centuries. The correlation is direct and disturbing. You didn't cause that, but your silhouette did, your smell did, the sound of your footstep on dry leaves did, because to the animal brain, you are not a modern person with a phone and a coffee. You are the creature that erased entire categories of life from this planet, the creature that hunted things so relentlessly that whole lineages simply stopped existing. And here's what makes it even stranger. That fear doesn't require experience. It passes between generations. Research by Michael Meany at McGill University has shown that stress responses can be transmitted across generations in mammals through epigenetics. Changes in gene expression shaped by the experiences of previous generations. A mother who experiences intense predator stress may give birth to offspring who are already primed to respond to that same threat, even before they've encountered it themselves. The fear is inherited, not as a memory, as a physiological setting. This is why it's not just animals that have been hunted who run from you. It's birds that have never never been near a gun. It's fish in fully protected marine reserves who dart away at your shadow. It's insects that scatter when you lean in too close. The memory of what we are exists below the level of individual experience. It lives in the body before the mind even forms. But here's something that complicates this entire picture. Not all animals fear humans equally, and the ones that fear us least reveal something deeply uncomfortable. Island species often have what biologists call island tameness. Charles Darwin noticed it during his voyage to the Galapagos in 1835. The birds there would land on his arm. The marine iguanas barely acknowledged his presence. He wrote in his diary that this was not bravery, it was ignorance. These animals had evolved in ecosystems with no large mammalian predators. They had no fear template for something shaped like us. They didn't know what we were. And the moment humans arrived on those islands, those species were devastated. The dodo is the most famous example. A large flightless bird that lived on the island of Mauritius and had no instinctive fear of humans whatsoever. Sailors described walking up to them and simply picking them up. Within less than a century of human arrival, the dodo was gone. Not because it was stupid, because it had never needed to evolve a fear that the rest of the world already had. A world with humans in it is a death sentence. This was confirmed on a much larger scale by a 2016 study published in Science, examining flight initiation distance, the gap at which an animal decides to flee from an approaching threat, across hundreds of species worldwide. The findings were stark. Animals in regions with long histories of human presence had evolved to flee much earlier. Animals in remote areas with little human contact delayed their flight, or didn't flee at all, and those relaxed animals were disappearing faster. The correlation between fearlessness and extinction risk was consistent and clear. The animals that inherited enough fear survived. The ones that didn't are in museums. Now consider your own body for a moment. Think about how you feel when you step into deep wilderness at night. The darkness between the trees, the sudden silence after a sound, the sense that something might be watching from somewhere you can't see. There is a reason forests feel different at night. There is a reason the open ocean feels different a mile from shore. You carry your own ancient threat assessments too. Your amygdala, the alarm center of your brain, runs fundamentally the same threat detection software as a deer's. You evolved in the same predator-filled world. You are not outside the system. You are a part of it. You are just, depending on which direction you're standing, a very different part. But here is the counterintuitive twist that changes everything. That fear animals carry, what the fear we've spent hundreds of thousands of years earning, is now beginning to dissolve in some places. Not because we've become gentler, but because certain animals have made a cold, calculated discovery. Being near humans is sometimes safer than being away from them. In protected wildlife reserves, prey animals near human settlements face fewer attacks from other predators because large carnivores avoid human presence. Leopards in Mumbai have learned to live in dense urban sprawl, partly because the chaos of human activity keeps rival leopards and other threats at bay. Coyotes across North American cities are expanding their ranges and their populations. Urban foxes in London enter homes. Herring gulls in coastal British towns have become so comfortable around people that they'll take food directly from a hand. The old calculus, humans equal danger, distance equals safety, is being quietly renegotiated by the animals themselves. And wildlife researchers are watching this shift with a mixture of fascination and unease. Because an animal that loses its fear of humans doesn't become domesticated. It becomes unpredictable. It enters human space with wild instincts, wild needs, and no shared framework for what the relationship means. The ones that are forgetting what we are may be heading somewhere more dangerous than the ones who still remember. That bird on your fence had it right. One look, then gone. Not because it panicked, because somewhere deep in its nervous system, in a place that has nothing to do with thought or choice, it knew exactly what you were. You've always thought of yourself as the observer. The one who watches nature from a careful distance. The visitor who leaves no trace. But every animal that freezes when you approach, every deer that stops mid-step at your scent, every crow that watches you from a wire and never gets quite close enough, they are not reacting to you as an individual. They are reacting to what you represent across 300,000 years of accumulated history. They are reading a record written in the bones of their ancestors. You are the thing the wild still runs from, and the next time a bird lands on that fence and doesn't fly away, the next time a wild animal looks at you and simply doesn't leave, don't think of it as trust. Think of it as forgetting, and wonder whether forgetting, for that animal, is the most dangerous thing it could do.